rate. WA's was the lowest in the country, but is up today. It is 4.1%. Do you attribute any of that to reputational damage as a result of the border that at one point you did oppose in the High Court? And do you think there should be an end date to workplace vaccine mandates in WA?
Well, I'll leave those matters to the Premier because they're entirely for his judgment. Because at the end of the day, WA government runs the hospital system, and they will assess what's best in the best interests of protecting that hospital system. The Commonwealth provided over $800 million both on hospitals and other COVID support to the health system here in Western Australia. In terms of the economy, we saw in other states and territories when they went through their waves that would have a short-term impact on the economy. We saw it in the other states, and so that doesn't surprise me that would have occurred in the short term here in WA, and I have no doubt that will actually rebound quite quickly here in Western Australia. And why is that? Because we've continued to invest together in the very fabric of the Western Australian state economy, and it is very resilient. So I would consider what has occurred here in that month as a very short-term impact, and I would certainly see the confidence and strength of the Western Australian state economy being able to push through and pass the Omicron wave that they've seen. I mean, that is just what we've seen every time around the country. I was going to come to that, and you're right. At the start, in the early phases of the pandemic, one of the things that we learnt over the course of the pandemic is states all ended up having differing experiences. And our decision, which was taken right at the start of the pandemic, followed the normal convention for engaging in any High Court action of that nature. The Premier raised his concerns with me about that, and we ultimately agreed with him, and that's why we withdrew. And that was one of the lessons of the pandemic, that the normal things, the normal rules that would apply, say on dealing with constitutional challenges, well, the pandemic changed all of that. And so that was an early lesson for me and my government, and that's why we reversed our earlier position. And that was out of recognition for the very specific and appropriate pathway that Western Australia was on. So I stand absolutely, you're right to say, did the Premier convince me to change my mind? Yes, he did.
Do you plan on making any major announcements alongside Anastasia Palaszczuk or Dan Andrews ahead of the election?
Well, let's see how. We're doing a lot, as Paul knows in particular. We'll be quite busy between now, certainly, and the election. We've got the budget coming up in just under a fortnight. And, you know, I work closely with all the premiers and chief ministers. I've chaired 67 meetings of the National Cabinet. And you don't spend that much time together without, and we're not talking about, 15-minute meetings. We're talking 2-3 hours, and in the early, it was like 4 hours on some occasions early on, Mark. We've spent a lot of time together, the premiers, the chief ministers and I, and we've got to know each other extremely well. And the overwhelming experience of that time has been one of trying to focus on the challenges in the national interest. And, we deal with a lot of issues. I mean, last Friday, it was last Friday, wasn't it? Yeah, last Friday. I mean, we were dealing with, of course, the winter preparedness plan. We were dealing with the moving through the opening up of cruise shipping and all of those issues. Then we were dealing with Japanese encephalitis. And then we were dealing with lumpy skin disease in cattle in the Northern Territory. And that's just the start of it. So we work on many issues together. And I want to thank the Premier for his partnership. It's been a good partnership. It's been an honest partnership. It's been a candid partnership. Haven't agreed on everything, but we've always been prepared to listen to each other. And where, I think I've had to change my view based on the Premier's representations, I certainly have. And we share one thing above all, and that is our commitment to Australia and our commitment to the people of Western Australia.